me, Half-Life 2 is one of the quintessential dystopian video games. It nails the atmosphere of a hopeless, decrepit society utterly controlled by this authoritarian, alien force that is the Combine. I'm playing Half-Life 2 again. I'm thinking, you know what? This is not so far off from the debatably dystopian society I actually live in. And I think there's a lot of lip service paid over the years to the idea that modern society is becoming dystopian. It's like 1984. People always quote Orwell. It's Orwellian. And it's interesting to see the left continue to claim Orwell for themselves while simultaneously advocating for incredibly authoritarian methods of censorship and political control. But no, they usually go, oh, well, Orwell was a socialist. So yeah, I mean, his critique in 1984 is obviously against a right-wing authoritarian dystopian future government, right? And it's warning against fascism. Without any kind of introspection that perhaps there is such a thing as left-wing authoritarianism, and frankly, I mean, 1984 resembles the kind of path we're currently on, far more than any kind of right-wing dystopian future I can imagine. Because, I mean, a right-wing dystopia, you have an authoritarian system that is undemocratic and it quells dissent with an iron fist. Obviously, that's part of it, and that sounds pretty shitty to me. But I'm sure a right-wing dystopia would probably have not much crime, would it? I mean, criminals would be executed for disturbing the cohesion of the society. And a right-wing dystopia certainly wouldn't have any kind of issues with multiculturalism or intra-ethnic conflict within the society. I mean, and I'm not advocating for something like that, YouTube, but I'm just saying that, hey, I mean, in a hypothesized right-wing dystopia, you wouldn't have those problems, would you? Because it would be ethnically homogenous. Phenomenon like, radical Islamic terrorism simply would not exist under this fantasy regime. I mean, that is the nightmare scenario that we're all supposed to be imagining, am I right? Because diversity is so important to our modern society. The concept of an ethno-state is considered viscerally and fundamentally objectionable, according to the left, unless we're talking about China, Africa, Israel. In that case, let's just, there's no issue. But if it was like a Western Christian right-wing dystopia, then I'd imagine it would be an ethno-state. Highly traditional, highly patriarchal. In fact, I mean, if we're going to categorize this fictional right-wing dystopia as a Christian dystopia, right? Like something like the Handmaid's Tale. Well, in reality, I mean, Christian morality is pretty comfy at the end of the day. It is the foundation for most of our Western democracies. I mean, we all, whether we like it or not, our values were forged in this European Christian milieu, which is coincidentally under attack and has been under attack by media and academic elites for decades. It's been deconstructed into oblivion, and just look out the window, look at our society without getting caught up in whatever the mainstream consensus narrative is supposed to be, and you'll see something far more terrifying, I think, than a quote-unquote right-wing dystopia, because the kind of system we live under today, I think, is unironically dystopian. It's anarcho-tyranny. It's the concept that the oppression of the state isn't being carried out directly, it's by proxy. It's when you feel like you're living under a police state, but with none of the benefits. Like, you don't feel safe in your own community. You don't feel like the police even give a shit about you or, upholding the law. But you'll watch them virtue signal on social media about LGBTQ issues and trans rights. They'll use taxpayer money to paint their police cars with the pride flag. But, if you criticize that online, they may be paying you a visit. That is anarcho-tyranny. And in the UK, where I live, after the coronavirus lockdowns, it's gone into full-blown hardcore mode here. And it's very unnerving, it's scary, and it's happening now. So, this ongoing debate about, Orwell was talking about a right-wing fascist fucking blah. Okay, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, but 1984, the content of that book far resembles this current neoliberal, neo-feudal society that we live in now. Moldbug called it the cathedral, and I quite like that analogy. It's this modern techno-clergy that is the modern left. The corporate-controlled globo-homo left, and the controlled opposition, the illusionary right, the fake conservative corporate establishment. This dystopia that we currently inhabit is one of their design, and it's like the anarcho-tyranny stage is just the beginning, and eventually we will end up somewhere far darker, somewhere where the truth isn't even real anymore. It's some kind of twisted facsimile of the Soviet Union, but somehow bleaker. That's where we're headed. But let's get back to my hypothetical fantasy right-wing dystopia again. You might not have much free speech, you might not be able to speak out against the government, because it's not a democracy, is it, right? So it's gonna be hard. But you know what? Like, your children certainly wouldn't be encouraged to transition into a gender that is at odds with their biological sex and also the scientific consensus for chromosomal theory. Maybe that wouldn't be happening. And hey, you know, materialistic and degenerate celebrities probably wouldn't be worshipped by society like some kind of modern-day cultural pantheon. Because we all know how much fascists love the arts, am I right? And you know what? Postmodernism, well, that's really not a very right-wing thing, is it? In fact, the idea of deconstructing architecture by making it as ugly as possible, and the same concept goes for music and also for the art world, well, I guess that'd be thrown out the window, but thank God that this is literally just a nightmare fantasy I'm having with you guys. I'm just sharing it with you. I'm so happy that we are progressing as a society. Yeah, and also, I mean, women would be oppressed. As I mentioned before, it would be a Handmaid's Tale type situation. So you know what? Women would be forced into their worst nightmare, which is just to be a housewife, you know, stay home, look after the kids, take care of the husband, you know, take care of the home, and not compete with men in society for their jobs. Increasing the wage by 50% and allowing more men to actually have a positive role in society, to step into the role of the father and the husband, restoring the honor of that role in society in an archetypal way, reducing the level of depression, of suicide, giving men a purpose again, the purpose that was robbed from them. But, you know, that's obviously, this is a feminist's absolute fever dream nightmare because, oh my God, women don't want to do that, do they? Women want to compete with men as individual units of economic production forever, reducing the quality of life for everyone for all time because Netflix says so. You know what? Bravo. Because all this stuff I've been describing here, this is what would happen if we allowed bigotry to win, okay? If Donald Trump won another 4 years, God forbid, this is the kind of world we'd be heading toward, all right? And that would be the absolute worst thing ever. I would downvote this dystopia as many times as I can without getting banned for excessive, vote manipulation on Reddit. I give this dystopia a downvote. But there's your right-wing dystopia, and merriment aside, frankly, I'm at the point now where I'd rather live in a situation like that. You know, I lose my freedom, I lose my free speech, but I've already lost that anyway. But you know what? At least the streets would be safe. Because right now, we live in this kind of society where you are surrounded by grotesque, smiling clowns who are holding right in front of your face the most hedonistic and stomach-churning degeneracy. And then you are not even allowed to flinch. And, you know, just by voicing your distaste for said degeneracy is enough to make you a criminal. That's the kind of society that we live in right now. And it's horrifying, really, on a deep level. And you know what? I'd prefer to live under Combine rule, right? Because sure, I have this authoritarian boot just on my face 24/7, but at least I know where I stand. Like, the Combine aren't gaslighting me into injecting my children with HRT and cutting my own dick off. Up is down, down is up. It's Purim 24/7. You know, the jester becomes the king. Everything is inverted. That is this world that we live in, which I like to call clown world because it's honestly the best way to sum it up. It's a mixed-raced female twerking on the ashes of Western European civilization. forever.